Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2021 and the second part of this experiment with Dorking Wanderers, where we're trying to find out what would happen if you gave a non-league team £1 billion to spend. Now last time out we had gone forward 15 years into the future with Dorking to try and see what would happen, and as you can see they've ended up with multiple promotions and relegations. Now today we're going to go forward probably about 10, 15, 20 years, something like that. We're not going to make any significant changes to the club at this point because they do still have £400 million left of their original billion, and they've got a massive transfer budget and wage budget as well. Now, of course, now they're in league football, one of the big restrictions around the club is going to be the financial fair play rules and being a profitable club. It means they can't just pump a huge amount of cash into loss-making activities. They still have to make a profit. So we may find that this experiment doesn't go much further. If that is the case, we will do another part to this experiment, if you guys would like to see it, where we go into the team and we, if you look at their club details, we boost this reputation up to 10,000. We refill their coffers up to £1 billion, and we could even give them a sugar daddy. So if you'd like to see that, do drop a like down below so that I know that you guys are interested in a third and final part. And of course, remember to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, so that you see that final part when it comes out, possibly tomorrow, maybe a little bit later. But let me know down there if there's anything you'd like to see as well that I've not shown you in this part. I can show that in the next part. So we may as well just sort of jump ahead and see how they're getting on in maybe 10 years time. So I'll go ahead now and see if they've managed to develop their facilities, their players and their league position over that period of time. Well, we are now 10 more years into the future with Dorking Wanderers, and as you can see it's been a little bit patchy, I think. Now, when we left off, we were in 2035, that's where we were. They did manage to get promoted via the playoffs the very next season. They unfortunately got relegated from league football. The last two times they finished 24th. They made progress this time and finished 23rd, but then going back down, they weren't able to bounce back. They did, after a little bit of consolidation, come back with a second place finish, and since then they've actually done reasonably well, just hanging on in Sky Bet League 2 really, in the bottom half of the table, but they have been able to establish themselves as a league football team. Thankfully Ched Evans is gone as well. If we have a quick look through this senior squad schedule over the last few years, you can kind of see the bounce where they do really well in the Vanarama National League. They have that terrible record in playoffs, but finally here they did manage to make it to the playoff final and then lost to Northampton, so the playoffs still not their friend. Another really good season here, worth keeping an eye on the trophies as well, but finally they break the curse of the playoffs in extra time. Adam Binns with the winning goal in that extra time period to take Dorking up into the Football League once more. But they had a really poor season, as we saw. They did manage to get relegated. They did get through in the Papa John's Trophy Southern Section, or to the Southern Section Group E. A little bit of an FA Cup run too into the third round, playing Sheffield United. That's a really big game for them at the Dorking Stadium. Lost 3-0, but a great gate receipts earner. Not that they need the cash really, but a terrible run of form in the second half of the season absolutely killed them. And then you get back into that trap of the playoffs where they lost in the final once more. Very good season where they did vanish to get through the playoffs. I think they finished second that season and still required the playoffs to go up, winning in the final. Another red card in the final. Tyrell Hill, the winning goal scorer this time. And then in League 2 they finally managed to solidify their position. A little bit better form, but it never improves. This is the thing, it's always the same, really patchy season after season. We're just keeping an eye on the cup competitions here to see if they have a good run anywhere. FA Cup third round replay, they took Crystal Palace to a third round replay. That's a really big result for them, before being beaten 2-0 with a man sent off. And in the most recent season, again, not really making much progress and not doing particularly well in the cup competitions either. Now, the interesting thing is that they're not really doing that much in the transfer window season after season, and it's that financial fair play kicking in and causing the problems. You can see 50 1k spent. They finally splash out on 170k, 100k, 200k spent on players. But these aren't the kind of figures you'd expect to see. Even in League 2, a team with this much money in the bank, you would expect them to spend a lot more money than they have been. This season here was their highest one, 450k. They brought in Chris Bruce for 115k, only on 1.9k a week though, so we're not seeing the crazy wages we were before, which is very interesting that they're not doing that. If you look at the wages here, remember when we looked last time, they were up at 25k a week. They've managed to solidify their wage base, which means that they've got a slightly more consistent structure around themselves, but they're just not going to progress unless they're really blowing the budget on good players and paying them above the odds wages. They're not going to move forward very much. And if we look at the club details here, the reputation's gone up a fair amount. It's up at 4,000 now. It was 2,500 when we started. You can see the minimum club attendance and the club attendance itself. That's now triple where it was at the start of the experiment. They've still got £265 million, so they've got the money available. Their transfer budget is currently sat at £108 million, and they've got a wage budget of £750,000 a week. So that doesn't really add up with what's going on here. And I don't really know why it isn't adding up, other than their financial fair play responsibilities. That must be a real problem for them. It might be worth just having a look here at their landmarks and seeing if they've had new chairman come in, but promotion from within is not the same as being taken over. I don't think they've had, I mean, it's happened a couple of times, look. They've had a failed takeover bid, promotions from within, always promotions from within. They've never had a points deduction or anything like that from financial fair play. A couple of bits here where they've had new chairmans coming in, but they're basically under the same ownership structure that they have been all along, because while new chairman's being promoted from within is a change of leadership, it's not a change of ownership, which is interesting. I don't actually know who owns this club. Maybe if we go to the staff, yeah, they've just got a chairman. They're not really owned by anybody, which again in itself is interesting. But it seems to be messing with the way that this experiment is running. So what I'll quickly do now is just go a few more years into the future, because they do still have a big well of cash, transfer budget, wage budget, and see if they do anything differently over the next few years. And if not, we're probably looking at another part to this experiment to see if we can turbocharge their run up into the Premier League. So I'll see you in just a second. So we have gone forward now, and as you can see, they've replaced, they replaced the rapist Ched Evans a little while ago. They've now got Scott Carson in charge of the club, which is a much safer pair of hands. No pun on goalkeepers intended there. But you can see that their form has actually improved a little bit from where we left off. Now, we left off in 2045. We're 8 years into the future now, and they kept on. This is a very steady progress up the league. Finishing in higher and higher positions, a few playoffs, they finally go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, and the cycle repeats. If we have a little look at this senior squad schedule from the season that we left off here, just quickly running through, they managed to stay in League 2 this time. Cup competitions, they had a little bit of a run here, they were doing reasonably well, they made it to the playoffs but were beaten by Swindon. Their record in the playoffs is horrific, there's no doubt about that. No great cup run this season either, and no playoffs for the fans to enjoy. But then they finally have a good cup run. They get to the second round of the FA Cup. They also make it to the third round of the Papa John's Trophy before being beaten by Forest Green. And in the playoffs, they are taken out by Gillingham, losing 2-1 away from home. All 3 goals in the space of 4 minutes there, either side of half-time. The following year, again, no major cup runs, no playoffs. And then I think this is the season where they get promoted, is it? No, it must be the next season. Or maybe not even the next season, they're still there. No, they did. They got promoted by finishing third. 3 teams get automatically promoted in League 2, don't they? That's why. And then in League 1, a very terrible start. Just continues, really. They have a decent cup run, though. FA Cup second round, Papa John's Trophy second round. But this end of the season absolutely batters them. And they get relegated back down to League 2, which is where they are at the moment. So if we just have a quick look at these league tables recently in League 2, just dropped back a season or so. You can see Dorking here, they did finish in second place, getting automatically promoted up. The year before that, promoted in third place, automatically promoted, only just finished ahead of them. And if we just jump up into League One as well, then we will see that this season they got relegated, 7 points off safety. And the year before that, relegated 5 points off safety. So they're not that far away. They are being competitive, but they're just not quite doing enough to stay in that league. But being in the same league as Sunderland, Reading, QPR, that's a big bit of progress for them. But unfortunately, their time is beginning to run out. And if you look at the transfers, £1 million barrier was broken in terms of being spent, 1.4 million as well. So they were starting to spend a little bit more cash. They've got a little bit better financial resources. The big player here was Don Guedes being spent. A lot of money being spent on him, so they managed to push past that £1 million barrier. I'm not sure, that must be a player going out for 5 million, was it? I'm not really sure. Yeah, 5.5 million in players going out. So who went out for 5 million is the question. Dom Guedes, the man going out for 5 million, signed for 86k and then sold for 5 million. That is a great return on investment for a lower league team. But if we have a look at their senior squad as well and those wages, you can see they're still very, very sensible. They're not splashing the cash here. And part of the reason for that, if we edit these club details, you can see that reputation just creeping up. The bank balance is still there, actually. I was going to say it's because the bank balance is going down, but they've still got 200 million. They just seem absolutely stingy and reluctant to spend it, even though the transfer budget and wage budget is there. Something is going on that is stopping them spending this money. And I don't really understand what it is. So it's a little bit strange. What I am going to quickly do is move myself to the manager of Dorking, and maybe we can investigate some of their finances when this loads. Should make me the manager now. We can just skip through all of this. And if we go and have a quick look at their finances, you can see the finances so steady for so long. They've only spent 50 million in 5 years. 50 million in 5 years, it's not bad. The profit and loss here, you can see they're making these big losses in the summer, but income is going to be pretty high, and part of that will be their loan interest, I imagine, or money that they get for having cash in the bank. So looking at their income here, you sort that by income, 5 million in player sold, but 2 million in interest. Interest is their biggest earner this season. Interest is their biggest earner, so maybe they're keeping that cash pile because it helps them with the financial fair play. By if your biggest earner is the interest you get on the cash in the bank, you're going to want to protect that interest and income. So I wonder if maybe that's why they're doing it, but it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. You can see the other here, advertising, supplies and general expenses. Somebody's screaming cash out. I would suspect somebody's raiding money out of the kitty there. Ground maintenance, player wages, transfer expenditure. All about what you'd expect for a team in this kind of situation. So this experiment has shown that money just doesn't really get you anywhere, I think is the takeaway from this experiment. They've just not progressed particularly far, and you could argue that the trajectory they had before we started this experiment meant that they might have been better off left alone, because they had a nice little rise previously, and they've continued that really steady rise. But you can't actually say that the money's been the significant factor in this. Obviously, it's really helped. They've probably done it much quicker than they would have, but they were a team on the up, and they haven't. It doesn't look like they've spent £1 billion, which is unusual. So I think if you guys are interested in another part, what we will do is we'll go into the club details. We'll rack their reputation up to 10,000. We'll go to the finances, put that back up to £1 billion. And we will give them the front end sugar daddy as well. So if you'd like to see that part, do drop a like down below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more experiments like this. But until next time, see ya.